Welcome, everybody, to your favorite new YouTube channel. This is Post Crisis Chat. I am your co host, the beautiful, handsome, wonderful, awesomely humble Cookie. And with me, as always, is.
This is Randy, your other co-host. Yeah, it's great to be here and be talking with everybody today. Today, we are going to review Swamp Thing number 22. This is written by Alan Moore, penciled by Steve Bissette, and inked by John Totleben. And if I pronounced any of those names wrong, let me know in the comments. And apologies to the people I'm actually talking about. If you happen to be watching and you're one of those creators, tell me how I pronounced your name wrong. Alan Moore, I beg of you, please don't curse me.
Yeah, don't piss that man off. He's scary. He's cool, but he's scary.
I legitimately fear his wizardry powers. All right, so getting into this issue, we're kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of the story. Swamp Thing previously was dead. Abby and Matt didn't know what happened to the Swamp Thing. They were out in the swamp searching for him. Um, you can tell that once again, we're not supposed to like Matt. Matt does not want to be there. He is unhappy. And then they find Swamp Thing or Alec. His name was Alec before when he was a human. So I may use those names Swamp Thing and Alec interchangeably. They find his rotting corpse out in the swamp.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. The only thing I can add to all of that description is that, personally, my opinion is, and I'm not too familiar with Matt and Abby from the previous run or the previous Swamp Thing titles, but I don't know what it is, but they rubbed me the wrong way in this issue. Found myself very annoyed by both of them. I've already decided I do not like Matt anyways, but Abby's whininess is already starting to get on my nerves.
Abby didn't bother me so much. We're not supposed to like Matt. I mean, I'll be honest,
Yeah,
Alan Moore, and please, Mr. Moore, don't curse me. Alan Moore is a little heavy-handed with Matt, how we're supposed to dislike Matt. And Alan Moore sits there and slaps us in the face over and over and over again with what an awful person Matt is.
yeah, there's no pulling punches on this guy. I mean, like half the time I expect to turn a page and see him like, downing like a case of Pabst Blue Ribbon and kicking a puppy.
You've read ahead, haven't you? No, I'm kidding. Also, about that time, Woodrue, who is the Floronic man, is that right? How you say it?
Yeah, yeah, Philharmonic Man. And technically he's been the Philharmonic Man before. I think like one of our last issues episodes, I mentioned that he was a Justice League villain. Came to find out that he first appeared in an issue of the Atom as Woodrue, and then later as a Philharmonic Man in a backup tale, Green Lantern. That was like a Flash story. But I mainly know him as a Justice League villain.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the story, and maybe I'm wrong. People tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I kind of got the impression that, and I understand you're saying he was the Floronic man before, but I almost feel like towards the end of the book, and we're going to get more into it, but towards the end of the book, I feel it's where he went from being Woodrue to being the Floronic man. But we'll get to there in a second. I just wanted to bring it up since you're saying he was a villain before, and I don't know if that was a retcon or anyway. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about it at the end. So Woodrue has to paint himself up because he is the wrong color. He has to look human and not green and brown and flowery. So he paints himself up to look like he's a human and comes out and tells Matt and Abby that he is a friend of Alex. One of the things that's really interesting to me that I don't think I picked up before is Abby mentions Woodrue says he's a friend of Alex, had taken Alex's corpse and tried to experiment on him, which is what we saw in Anatomy Lesson, the previous issue. Abby actually mentions that Sunderland blew up her home, like exploded, blew up, and that's why Abby and Matt are currently living in a hotel.
Yeah, I saw that too because I for some reason I flashed back to the explosion of the hotel in I think it was issue 20. But I mean that can't be it. So it must have been something like Sunderland must have been a character that has been around in the previous arc, like they were setting some stuff up with him. But then with the team leaving, more kind of comes in, which would also explain why it kind of felt like Sunderland was going to be a bigger villain, and then just boom, he's dead. Like, yeah, I was like 1 minute he's there, next minute he's gone. So I guess I could see maybe that's kind of what was happening.
I think that was Alan Moore cleaning up old villains before he wrote the book.
That's kind of what I was taking from it too. Like he wanted to go a totally different direction. Like I said, I didn't read any of the previous issues before Moore's run, so I don't know if they were kind of going like maybe a more typical superhero-ish kind of route of like he had like a rogues gallery or something.
I feel like you're probably right about that. One thing that's interesting to me when Woodrow is talking to Abby and Matt, um, he makes himself out to be the good guy. And honestly, he kind of was in the previous book. I mean, he's doing it for selfish reasons, but he was a good guy.
That's kind of what I thought. Like, I mean, he wasn't technically telling a lie. Like he did rescue Swamp Thing. I mean, granted, he cut the hell out of him before he did it, but like I don't think he fully knew that, Alec was still, or Swamp Thing was still alive. I don't really see him as the villain. Like he's just kind of more of a creepy scientist.
Yeah, I agree. So Woodrow also recaps what happened in the previous issue to Alec or Swamp Thing. He talks about how Swamp Thing found out he's not a human anymore. He may have some human memories, but he's a plant creature now. He is not human at all. And then he mentions that while they're looking at Swamp Thing's corpse that could still be alive, we're not sure, but Woodrow does mention that Swamp Thing has stopped pretending to breathe.
That, and I think that's like a major kind of shift in the dynamic of the character, like left over from the anatomy lesson, because that's where we learned like, okay, he never was human. So it's like all the stuff that he did, like they said, like the bones, the organs, everything was all just basically there for no reason. And now he's coming to terms with the fact that it's like he's a plant.
And I think the pretending not to breathe is kind of giving us the introduction into Swamp Thing realizing that he is no longer human, and
Yes.
maybe even starting to let go. That's the first step to letting go of that humanity.
And like the little bits that I know about like Swamp Thing and stuff, like I always remember from some cartoons and like guest appearances in comics later on down the road. You saw Swamp Thing was like able to do these extraordinary things with nature of like, make things grow, make himself grow, do all this kind of cool stuff. I don't recall ever seeing that before. So I kind of wondered, was that kind of like where they started to kind of part ways of like he thought he was human, so he was still restricted in what he was capable of doing. Now he's a plant, and so he's got like the limitations are off.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think, especially as we'll see as we go on. One of the things that they bring up is that Swamp Thing corpse, or maybe not corpse. We're not sure if he's there or not, but it started producing tubers that are similar to yams. And as Kendrick taught us, yams are the powers that be. So Abby, the first thing she does when Woodrow holds up a yam, she just immediately pukes.
Which, I mean, I think that's a little harsh, but then I'm biased because around Thanksgiving I do like me some that yam casserole with the marshmallows and the brown sugar and the butter and basically just diabetic death. I happen to love that, so I don't think I would yak just because I see a yam. But to each their own.
But it's a yam who came from somebody that you love, like literally came out of their body.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a plant. It's not like Matt crapped out a yam. This is Swamp Thing. He's a plant. He's vegetables. So, like, what did you think was going to happen? Stuff's going to grow out of him.
And then at that point, we see that Alex Swamp Thing is kind of reliving some moments from his past. He seems to almost be confronting his humanity and trying his best to hold on to it.
I really liked that sequence. I thought they wrote it and they drew it really, really well. It had, I don't even know what you would call it, but there was like this, there was a little bit of emotion to it. It had a creepiness, like the body kind of decomposing, and he's carrying around the skeleton of Alec, and it's like there's just this. It's one of those moments. Like I find every issue of Swamp Thing, there's at least one moment that really kind of pushes itself forward to show you this is not a book for children. This is a horror comic book. And I felt that dream sequence was one of those moments.
Yeah, I can see that. And when I was initially reading it, I realized that, well, I thought at first that Alec was showing us his past. But then as it kind of moved forward, I realized there were some elements of the present there. So I realized that it's not really showing his past life, but just showing pieces and chunks of him that made him who he is.
Yeah, it was very like psychological the way that they did it. It almost like if you had the right music, it would feel like a scene out of Twin Peaks or something.
Hmm. And then after that, we kind of cut back and forth between those dream sequences and or Alec confronting his humanity sequences to Abby you know, being out walking around. Her and Matt are back home. She's trying to process everything that's happened to her and everything that's happened to Alec. And she walks into the hotel room and she thinks she hears Matt talking to a woman, but she like throws the door open and Matt's in there by himself. Could the woman have been on TV? Because it shows there was a TV there, but I'm not sure. I wasn't sure about where that voice was coming from. Did you notice that, or did you have any thoughts on where that was coming from?
Uh, I mean, I noticed it, and I felt like foreshadowing to me. Like there's something because we already know Matt can create these like illusions with like we saw the one in the hand. So I don't know if that's like something the illusion's doing, or if that's somebody working behind the scenes that's able to give him the power. Obviously, there's some kind of setup happening here. I kind of felt it was a little melodramatic the way that they were kind of trying to build the tension of Abby because it's like it felt like okay, she feels betrayed that her husband is with this other woman, and I'm like, we've spent 3 issues with you now, and you haven't really shown a lot of love and affection towards this man. So why? Yeah, so it's like, why are you like? I'm not getting their relationship.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And then we kind of cut back to Woodrue at that point, and he has taken one of Swamp Thing's yams, and he has cooked it, put it on a plate, and he wants to eat it. Woodry seems to realize that he is not as connected to the plant world, or what we will later find out is the green, as he wants to be. And he kind of wants to use that yam to get more connected with the green, which I believe, as we get into further into this issue, this is the first mention of the green, maybe ever, because I feel like the
Uh,
green was Alan Moore's creation.
yeah, I kind of feel like he did set a lot of that up. I mean, they've since this time they've used the green and like all these different elements of nature and stuff like that, jumping off of his basically premise. But I believe it was more that started it. And I mean, did you happen to have the same thought that I had when Woodrue is eating the yam? Of it's like, dude, you're a plant and you're eating a plant. This is plant cannibalism.
I did not have that thought. I see where you're coming from. I don't know that I agree with it.
I mean, I kind of consider it plant cannibalism a little bit. I could be wrong.
Plant cannibalism. Let us know in the comments what you think about plant cannibalism. Seriously, I want
Yeah.
to know because I'm
Hey,
I'm
look,
I'm kind of with Cookie on this one. I see where he's coming from. I don't think I'm really with him on it. What do you think? Tell us down below.
exactly. And hey, let's see if we can get that trending on X one of these days. Hashtag plant cannibalism. Let's get the movement going, baby.
We switch back to Swamp Thing, and he's trying to maybe at the same time hold on to his old life, but he realizes he needs to let it go. And in this case, his old life is being represented by Linda, his dead wife.
Yeah, that I thought that was interesting because I've like I said, I've never read any of the early stuff, and pretty much up until reading this run, I actually forgot that he was married, and I certainly did not know his wife's name was Linda. So, kind of learning a lot of this stuff is a little interesting, and it I kind of wonder, like, okay, longtime readers, does that have an impact, like bringing her back and having her die on?
How did you feel about it when this originally came out, if you were one of those people who read it then?
Yeah, I'm generally kind of curious because, like, to me, it didn't have much of an effect other than the fact that it was just a cool, creepy moment, kind of establishing the depth of his humanity, of like you're seeing him slip away and become like more and more just like he said, like no longer a man but a monster.
Yeah, I agree. And then we switch back to Abby, who has gone back down to the swamp, back to Swamp Thing's corpse. And for some reason, Matt has tagged along in this. And then Abby goes down and starts begging the Swamp Thing to come back. And she calls Alec, quote, the most loving and human man she's ever seen. And she says this right in front of Matt. Like, damn.
Again, I cannot be like, people like I tell me again if I'm wrong or something, but it just feels like this relationship was doomed from the very beginning. Like I really want to know what was their relationship like before Alan Moore got onto the book. Like, did he just completely Jerry Springer them?
Yeah, right. I'm kind of curious myself. Maybe after I get done reading some of the things I'm currently reading, I'll go back and see if I can read some of those early Swamp Thing issues. I've heard from people they're not great. The book really didn't get great till Alan Moore came on. But, I kind of want to go back and see. And then right after that happens, we switch back to Swamp Thing, who's having these visions, and kind of we're getting back into realizing that these visions are him maybe kind of fighting with or wrestling with the green. And he is literally holding on to half of his old human skeleton, running around calling the skeleton his humanity. And creatures around him, plant looking creatures from the green, are trying to take his humanity from him. Literally, the skeleton. They're trying to rip it out of his hand.
That, like I said, again, that goes back to that whole. I don't even we can't even really call it a dream sequence because this is essentially him in the green. So this is just kind of like the green's way of trying to get him to leave his humanity behind and embrace what he is. Um,
And I don't want to get too far ahead, but the green already knows what he is. Swamp Thing is not the first Swamp Thing. He is we're going to find out later he's the last Swamp Thing in a long line of them, and the green is trying to get him to realize that.
I'm sorry to anybody who's watching this, but apparently we just got spoilers.
The
Thank you
spoilers are
for the
40 years
warning.
old at this point.
Yeah, well, some of us haven't read it yet, so. But one of the things that like really kind of got to me reading this and just reading this run so far is that because I know there was rumor for a while we were going to be getting a Swamp Thing movie in the new DC cinematic universe, but apparently it's been put on hold and we're getting Clayface instead. But if they eventually go through with the Swamp Thing movie, I don't know, like I feel like just drop the origin and just start adapting Moore's run because some of these things I would love to see on screen. Like I could see like
Thing TV show, a season or two.
there was one season of a Swamp Thing TV show. It wasn't bad. My number one complaint with that TV show was that they took one of my favorite characters of all time, the Phantom Stranger, and made him look like a fat old hairy hobo.
I should probably
That
go
is not.
back and watch that at some point. I don't want to get too far off topic though. Basically, at some point during this dream sequence or argument with the green, his humanity starts giving him crap and talking back to him and talking snarky to him. I actually thought that was a pretty funny moment.
Yeah, I think that actually made me chuckle too, because I don't remember entirely what it said, but I thought like, all right, that was kind of a clever little like thing to have that happen, almost like it was the Green setting him up of you're not going to willingly do it, so we're going to kind of have basically your own humanity turn on you so that you can leave it behind.
Yeah, and then that's exactly what happens. He decides to leave his humanity behind. He embraces the green and he can feel all the plants in Louisiana. And then as he's starting to feel all of the plants in Louisiana, he's like, "Wait, is that a redwood? How close is the closest redwood? Can I feel California?" And then he starts stretching out and trying to feel all these other plants. And he's like, "Oh my God, I'm in the Amazon. I'm in Africa. I can feel all the plants on the planet."
That's the first taste of what I do know about Swamp Thing. Of like that's what I know is that he's basically, I mean, he's basically the Earth.
Yep. And in an interesting turn of events, this also seems to be the moment that Woodrow embraces the green and finally loses his own humanity and says, "I am no longer Woodrow. I am the Floronic Man."
And I can see where you were kind of saying like it feels like almost like a retcon. I kind of take it more as just like up until this point, he was a supervillain. Like that's what he was. Like I don't even know what his motivation was in Justice League titles and stuff like that. I may have like some early appearances. I've never paid attention to them because he just never interested me as a character. So it could have been like, jewelry heists and things like that. And this time it's like, no, he's going from basically being nothing, like literally a D-list character into like this major badass kind of villain of like there's just this thing like you sense that like whatever's coming in the next few issues is going to be big and it's going to be like okay we're going to see something happen.
Right. I agree with you there. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. And when I read this comic for this review show, I make notes while I read it, and I originally gave this issue a score of 2 out of 5 yams. After my discussion with you, I'm actually going to bump it up a little bit. I'm gonna give it 2.5 yams instead, and really discussing and getting into the details of Swamp Thing's struggle in the green with his humanity, and a couple of things you said towards the beginning that I maybe didn't pick up on as I was reading them is why I'm improving my score. But the reason I'm only improving my score a little bit is the scenes between Abby and Matt are just, I don't like them. I'm bored with them. I hate Matt. It's fine. We're supposed to hate Matt. Get on with it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the score. To me it feels like, and I granted like I said I think we're like 3 issues into the run, but it feels like there's a pattern building here. And I only know this because prep work, and so I'm had to read ahead a little bit, so I know the next issue. And it kind of feels like the pattern is you get a setup issue, which is kind of like, okay, it's not bad, it doesn't suck, and then you get the issue that kind of starts to give you the payoff, and that's the one where it's like, okay, now things are starting to kind of pick up, things are getting kind of good, hot and heavy, and this felt like another setup issue, and I'm just like, okay, I just like you said, Matt and Abby, I don't care about. I was waiting for something epic to happen, and we pretty much get it in the last like page where you kind of see, which I thought was beautifully drawn too, because you kind of feel that Woodrow is shedding his humanity as
Yeah,
he
I
becomes the
agree.
Floronic Man.
Probably don't focus on the art as much as I should. I don't know. I'm not an artist. I've been a writer myself in the past. I was a professional writer for a little while. So my focuses tend to be on the writing more than the art, but I do want to compliment the artist. The art was great. They
I,
do a
I-
really good job of conveying the feel, especially during the green sequences. It felt claustrophobic when all of those monsters or plant creatures, maybe they weren't monsters, plant creatures were surrounding Swamp Thing and just like trying to rip the humanity away from him. It made me feel claustrophobic for him.
yeah, and I felt like I remember last issue we were talking about how like the panel work kind of took a step back from issue 20 because like 20 we were like that Dan Day was like really killing it on the panel work, the designs and everything, and I kind of felt like this issue you're starting to see a little bit better panel work again. The designs are starting to kind of improve a little bit more, and I'm hoping that's going to be a pattern we see throughout the title, that we get more and more creative looking artwork.
I just checked the notes, and it was Stephen Bissette who did the pencils, and John Totleben who did the art. I'm sorry, the inks rather, for issue 21. So yeah, I agree. There's now that you mention it, there was some definite improvement from 21 to 22.
I felt so, and it kind of feels like they're starting to kind of hit their stride. So I read a little bit ahead and give a little bit of a teaser. And the issue that I'm looking forward to is issue 24. And it's because something happens in issue 24 you already know as well, of what's coming in issue 24, I believe.
I've forgotten. I don't remember. I'm sure
Oh,
I'll remember when I read it, but
oh yeah, there's something in. I'll explain
I'm
why I'm
excited
looking forward to
now.
it.
I'm excited to get there. Two
Yeah,
weeks
there's
away.
something yeah.
We'll get to that in 2 weeks.
Okay, so before we sign off, I do want to show something real quick that I thought was really cool because I'm reading single issues. I don't have the endless amounts of money that certain people do to buy the omnibuses or the collected editions. So I'm reading the single issue. This is the issue. The price tag right there, $25. That is what my brother paid for this particular issue. And that was back probably maybe 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if it's gone up or it's gone down, but I can't honestly say I would have like people who are going to link down below, get the trades, get the omnibus. Don't spend $25 on this particular issue.
Yes, yes, please click the links below. We're going to have affiliate links to Amazon. So Amazon has a really nice box set. That's how I'm reading it. It's 5 or 6 trade paperbacks. It's very cheap. It works out to less than $10 a trade paperback if you buy the box set. And that's how I'm reading these issues and enjoying them. So yes, please click our affiliate link, click on our Patreon, give us all the money. All right. So, thank you everybody for joining us. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, do all those things that help us grow this channel. We want to keep bringing this content to you. All 3 people who are watching it, 2 of which are maybe our friends, maybe not after they see the episodes.
Wait, you have friends?
So, thank you everybody for joining us on behalf of Cookie and myself, Randy, co-host on Post Crisis Chat. Please come back next week where we will be talking about Swamp Thing issue 23.